Hey, what's up guys, it's James Simon here and welcome back to the next episode here on Stock Academy of my video tutorial series. In the last episode we were looking at kind of mixing down our percussion, making sure that our high-end percussion was really sitting well with the low end of the kick and the sub, and then looking at a couple of techniques using some nice EQs and some delay and some reverb to really help meld it all kind of together. In this episode we're going to be looking at atmosphere effects. Now, atmosphere effects are something that I do pretty much in every single track. It's those kind of background sounds that you don't necessarily hear at the front of the mix, but they're there in the back to kind of create a blanket of sounds that when you've got everything else playing, so for example what we've got now, the kick, the bass, the percussion, it's just, you know, very standard. There's not much kind of character to it. It's a very standard kind of groove. We want to kind of add some extra effects behind them just to kind of create this nice kind of atmosphere to the track, and they're usually going to be kind of drones with some kind of movement in them. And I've got 3 atmosphere effects on the left here which were taken from the Sonic Academy sound effects banks, and I'll just drop those into the project. And we're going to be looking at a couple of different ways that we're going to kind of create these atmosphere effects. And then we've also got a third and final, or at least a fourth one, it should be a fourth one that is on Sylenth as well, and we will look at creating that. So first off, let's just link these to the channel. I've got the effects preloaded, set as default of course, and then we're going to have a look at actually processing them. So let's have a listen to the first one. A very kind of odd and obscure kind of sound. It almost sounds like something from out of a film, but we're going to go ahead and kind of make that fit into our track. So first of all, I'm just going to load up the bass so it's playing, and I'm going to get this into the right key. And to do that, I'm just going to double click onto the sample, and then down here in time stretching, I'm going to use the pitch function to pull this into the right key. So there we go, I had to pitch it by 900 cents, which is I believe 9 tones, to get it all the way up to the right key. So we've now put it into E. A lot of low end on that, so let's take all of that out. High end also, so maybe just bring that down a little bit and boost the mid. Still some low end in there, so let's cut that off. Sounds quite nice. Now I really want to kind of make this a bit more kind of atmospheric, a bit longer, a bit more spacey, so we're going to add some delay to it. So let's change it to ping pong. We're going to put the input to the pan to the left, the offset to the right, and we're going to just up the feedback level a little bit more. So that's just kind of increase the tail of the sound itself. Now let's add some reverb, and this is where we can really kind of add some nice sound to it. So we're going to up the reverb by quite a lot. Let's do a nice high-low cut to around the same. So that was about, I can't read that, it's about 350. Maybe pull it a little bit more because there was a bit more low end in there. And then we're going to up the decay by quite a bit. Let's try 4.5 seconds to begin with. Sounds quite nice. Maybe we can improve that, make the room size a bit bigger. Let's pull the high cut up a little bit so we get at least a bit of the high end in there. Liking the sound of that. And now let's just add some sidechain onto it, as I don't want it to be kind of standard straight. I want it to be kind of bouncing up and down with the rest of the track. Sounding quite nice. Let's just move the percussion out the way so we can listen with just the kick and the bass. So straight away, that's definitely adding, as it says, more atmosphere into the track. Really liking the sound of that at the moment. So let's try it with the second atmosphere sound. And all I'm going to do is just link it to the same channel. If you're working not on Cubase, not on FL, and you might be on like Cubase, Ableton, or Logic, obviously what you'd have to do is you'd have to set this atmosphere track channel up as a bus or an auxiliary bus, and then you'd have to individually link your atmosphere effects to a new channel and then just change the output so they're going through the bus. So you've got all your effects on the bus and then your individual channels being linked to that bus. But with FL Studio, we're able to just link it directly to the same channel, which is a very nice feature. I'm just going to turn off Atmos 1 and let's have a listen to Atmos 2 with all of these effects on. Quite high pitched and piercing, that one, so maybe let's just bring down the high just a tiny bit more and bring down the volume quite a lot. Sounding good, so let's get this to the right pitch. Upping it by 400 cents, so 4 tones, that sounds quite nice there. Let's have a listen with the first atmosphere and the kick of the bass. Don't think that's quite in the right key. Let's just play that again. Okay, so that's not working going upwards, up in pitch. Let's try going down. I think that sounded a bit better, down by 200 cents, so 2 tones, sounding quite nice indeed. Next up for our third Atmos effect, let's just have a listen. We'll just mute those first two. Let's just have a listen to see how this sounds. Kind of a strange sound. Let's see how it sounds with the kick and the bass. So not in the right key at all. Now I'm going to show you another way of being able to kind of stretch the sound and change the key at the same way. It's quite an interesting kind of technique that you can really do this on anything. So you can take an individual sound, you could add a lot of reverb onto it, render it back out, put it into your project, and then you can stretch out that sound and really kind of make it long and distorted and completely change the sound of the way that the sample was in the first place. So all I've done is up the top here where it says focus audio clips. So you've got your automation clips and your pattern clips. It's usually set on default audio clips, but if not, just click up on here. Zero cross will probably be set on as standard for yourself. I just like zero cross turned off. And this section here is what we're looking for. So if you look in the top left hand corner underneath where it says file and all the info, it says stretch audio when resizing audio clips. So that means when I'm resizing the audio clips at the moment, it doesn't actually change anything. The sounds, the pitch of the sound and the length of the audio clip stays the same. So there's no difference there. So when we turn this on, this now means that we're going to be changing the actual length of the clip itself. So you can hear it's actually changing the pitch of the sound as we're stretching that sound out. So let's just get it back in with the kick and the bass, and I'll just set this to default. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start stretching the sound out until I get it into the right key. So there we go, we can hear that that's kind of nicely stretched it into the right key. I was quite lucky when I was looking around for these samples, just got them from the Sonic Academy sample packs, that I found these and I realised that if I stretched it out, it worked quite nicely. And it's also actually stretching the length of the sample itself. So this now means it's a longer sample rather than the short one before, and it's in the right key. But instead of keeping it the way it is now, we're going to do another little trick, and we're just going to hit reverse. And now this has reversed it to from its default position. So I think we're going to use this as like a final kind of sound effect. So we've got these first two playing, and then we're going to use this third one as a final sound effect, just before the you know, the end of the bar, the end of the kind of section. So let's have a listen to see how this sounds. So I'm really liking the way that that sounds. It's creating this nice kind of blanket of kind of background atmosphere effects, playing the same ones over and over. Later on in the mix, they're not going to become as apparent as they are now, obviously with just the kick and the bass playing, but it really kind of helps the intro when you've just got kick and bass and nothing else really playing behind it. It can sound very kind of standard. So this is a nice way to kind of add a little bit, an extra layer to behind the kick and the bass. So now we've got our fourth one and final one that we're going to add. So I'm just going to link this to its own channel. And this one is really simple, to be honest. I like doing this and just kind of finding weird and wonderful sounds and presets within Silent4 and other kind of synth. And like I mentioned before, you can kind of make your sound, render it out, and then put it back into your project to kind of play around with. This time, I'm just going to go through the presets, and I found a very, very nice one just within the standard sound bank. I believe it's in the second patch. Yeah, the second standard sound bank for Silent, and it's this one. It's the bass. It's called Aggressor. So let's just add in our note. So we're in the key of E, so I'm just going to add in E. And I'm going to do a nice big long note. And that's just going to repeat. So let's just have a quick listen to see how that sounds. Nothing really special at the moment, but let's try and do something with it. I think maybe let's just kind of add a little bit of this kind of sawtooth sound. I quite like the sound of that. I think that should sound really nice sitting in the background. Now let's have a look at the LFO section, see if we can play around with some of this and see what we can do. So let's change this to cutoff A and B. So we're going to be automating the cutoff with the LFO. Let's just see how that sounds now. Just kind of pulsating up and down. It's basically pulling this cutoff up and down. Let's try changing the rate and the offset and see how that sounds. Starting to get a little bit more crazy. Maybe let's not have the sine wave. Let's try a couple of others, see how they sound. It's a very cool sound, the Lorenz. Let's just try random. I like that one. I really like the random, as it's kind of obviously, as it says, doing something random. So it's a mix of all of them kind of put together, and so it's not just kind of the same standard sounds. The way that the LFO is working, it's changing its way up and down. So that sounds pretty nice to me. So let's have a look at just adding some effects. Quite a lot of low end in there, so let's just get rid of that. Maybe get rid of some of this high end as well. Adding in some mid. And now let's get the delay in there. And we're going to do the same ping pong delay, input to left, offset to the right. Maybe let's change the time to 4 and add some extra feedback. That's starting to sound pretty nice, getting a bit more atmospheric now. Now let's add some reverb onto this as well. We're going to do pretty much the same as what we did before, adding lots of reverb, a long decay, big room size, warm color, and let's try this. So that's starting to sound pretty nice. One more thing that I think I'm going to do is maybe let's just fiddle around with the dry setting here. At the moment it's set at 100% dry, and we're changing the amount of reverb that we hear with this toggle here. Let's maybe pull back on the dry so we're hearing more of the wet signal instead. I think that sounds a bit better. It's kind of the first transient of the sound. It was a little kind of punching through a little bit too much, and that way, just using the dry knob here, so we're allowing more of the wet sound to come through, or at least decreasing the dry sound. It's just kind of merging the two, reverb and the dry signal, together a little bit more. I do this quite a lot on my sounds, just to help them sit within the mix a little bit better. Now let's just add some sidechain. As always, I love to sidechain pretty much everything in my track, just to help with that groove. That's sounding pretty nice to me. Alright, let's drop this in with the rest of the sounds, get the volume right, and then see how we can go from there. I'm really liking the sound of that at the moment. 4 very simple kind of sounds, but using some simple effects, we've really kind of changed the way that they sit in the mix and created this very, very nice blanket of sound behind the kick and bass. And this is really going to work well, especially in the intro. We want to drop just the kick and the bass, or just the kick and the sub, and then the Atmos effects behind it. So if I could just play that now. So as you can hear, that's just taken this track to another level. It's just really helped to kind of make it a little bit different. It's not your just standard kick and bass. It's added something in there which is helping the foundation and the back end of the track. And as I mentioned, the further on into the track you go, the less kind of prominent these will be. Maybe I can turn down the volume so they're not as prominent in the first place. But yeah, sounding very, very nice indeed. So some cool techniques and very simple to do to add that nice backing Atmos effects. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.